everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name is Sean Waskrug, and I'm here to review all the latest movies in theaters, as well as anything that you guys recommend, whether it be recent films or old school movies. Now, before we get into today's review, don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel, so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up. Also, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets that you see below, and let's go ahead and get into today's review. Now, today I am reviewing one of the top Oscar favorites that are going through the award season, and that is Christian Bale's Vice. Now, this movie is it's basically the story of Dick Cheney and his rise to becoming one of the most powerful vice presidents of all time. Now, before I get too far into it, I'm going to go ahead and just say this right now for people who are watching this review. I'm not a big politics guy. I'm just not. I mean, my extent of politics, spreads to like SNL and Netflix's House of Cards. So I'm not a big politic guy. Now, I mean, do I watch things that have politics in it, like shows? Absolutely. Do I fully understand 90% of the stuff they're talking about? Depends on how they break it down. But like I said, I'm not someone that is like a super strong belief on either way this film goes. Just kind of watching this more as a character story and more for the performances. So, I mean, for the people who are super political, you may or may not like this review, because I'm not gonna go into the deep politics of it all. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way before I went too far into it. The basic plot of this movie is exactly what I said earlier. It's literally the life and the rise and not necessarily a fall, but more the fall of Dick Cheney. It basically starts in the 60s when Dick Cheney is in college or just getting out of college. And it kind of goes all the way up to, for the most part, present day. And so because of that, we do see a lot of we see a lot of different types of Christian Bale in this. We do see young Christian Bale, with some weight, and then we see, once they start putting more of the makeup on and allowing Christian Bale to look more like Dick Cheney as the way goes. Same thing goes with Amy Adams, who plays Lynn Cheney, which is Dick's wife in the movie, and then also, of course, Steve Carell, who plays Donald Rumsfeld. All three of those actors, they definitely go through the aging aspect of the movie as they, you see them kind of more of a younger version of themselves, and then by the end of the film, more older. Now, what works in this movie overall, and this is obviously the reason why it's being nominated for a bunch of things, is the performances of this film are hands down some of the best of the year. Now, Adam McKay, the director, he did The Big Short, which was a huge Oscar hit a couple years back. Most of these people he's worked with before. Most of these people have been in The Big Short or have worked with Adam McKay at some point. And so it's really just kind of him just going through the motions with the story with all these actors. They all know each other very well, so the chemistry from everybody works fantastic throughout the film. Christian Bale crushes this film as Dick Cheney. The level of stuff that he has to go through in this movie and the weight he gained to look like Dick Cheney. Now, yeah, obviously they had to put makeup on his face to make him look older, but he gained all that weight for the most part. And like I said, the levels of stuff that he did to his health to look like Dick Cheney so he could portray Dick Cheney to his fullest is astounding, and it further proves how much of an amazing actor Christian Bale is to everybody. I mean, the dude has transformed his body numerous times in his career, whether it was, looking basically like a skeleton in Equilibrium, to getting in incredible shape for American Psycho and Batman, to then once again gaining all the weight again for, I believe it was American Hustle, and of course, Vice here. The dude is basically a chameleon. I mean, not that Daniel Day-Lewis is considered old, but he's kind of the modern version of Daniel Day-Lewis, where he fully gives himself completely into the role and will change his body accordingly based on the role he has. Amy Adams, once again, she's also one of the best female actresses out there. She basically, like I said, also like a chameleon. She gives everything she's got into her performances, and you can see it in every role here. She does a fantastic job as Lynn Cheney, who's basically a woman who realizes that because of her stature of being a female, she's just not going to get ahead in the points of politics that she needs to be. So she uses Dick to kind of push her agenda in a way, kind of almost like House of Cards in a sense. And I'm gonna say that a lot. This movie's very House of Cards like. But yeah, I mean, you can see a lot of the elements of that show in this. Now, obviously, this is real life, so I mean, there's maybe House of Cards took a lot of elements from this. But Amy Adams kills it as Lynn Cheney. She has that tough demeanor chick that you just don't want to cross her path, and she's the one that just kind of reels Dick in and keeps everyone on their toes and keeps everyone focused on the goal overall. And Amy Adams does a fantastic job in it. The standout for me in this film is obviously Steve Carell, who's been crushing it lately. He did fantastic in A Beautiful Boy, and he does amazing in this as Donald Rumsfeld. He's definitely my favorite part of the film. He's more brash and kind of the loose cannon of the group. And, I mean, it's Steve Carell doing what Steve Carell does best. And I'm so happy to see that he's branched out. But it also makes me sad because he's not getting recognized for this at all. Sam Rockwell is as George Bush, and while he does a good job as George, I feel like he's kind of playing more of an impersonation, kind of like what we see with like Will Ferrell in SNL or Josh Brolin in W. I don't feel that Rockwell's doing his own version of Bush. I feel like he's just impersonating George W. Bush, and while it's a great impersonation and he deserves a lot of recognition for it, I feel like he's kind of jumping over Steve Carell in supporting actor nominations because of it, and I feel like that's just not fair. I feel like Steve Carell does a way better job in this movie, plus he's given more to do in this movie than Sam Rockwell does. Sam Rockwell maybe has 7 minutes of screen time in this film, where Steve Carell has a lot more to do, and he's given a lot more to act on, and it's sad that Carell's really just getting snubbed and undermined by everybody for his performance in this film. But like I said earlier, this movie has a very House of Cards kind of feel. Like I said, except for that this really happened. And there's just the level of craziness that happens in this movie. It just boggles your mind that this stuff actually happened. And that they got away with so much of this stuff. I mean, Cheney and Rumsfeld, they took advantage of Bush. At least that's how it's portrayed in this film, is that they took advantage of Bush, someone who just really wasn't fit to be president or smart enough to realize that he was basically being undermined by every turn. And Cheney and Rumsfeld basically put all their fingers in every aspect of the government, of Congress. And basically, them as a duo, Cheney probably more so, was actually the real president and not Bush. Now, obviously, in terms of this movie, this could be either looked at as a comedy to some, because of the antics that happened in this film, and there are some funny moments in the movie, but to some other people, this could be looked at as like a scary drama, because the actions of what Cheney and Rumsfeld and the rest of their cabinet do in this movie, there are long-standing repercussions that are still happening to this day because of what they did. Now, does that necessarily make Dick Cheney's character a villain in this film? To some, yes. Now, to others, he was just doing what he thought was best for the country, while also trying to line his pockets. But because of the certain things that him and Rumsfeld and the cabinet do, it has given us long-lasting effects such as ISIS and other certain situations I'm not going to get into because I'm not trying to make this a political thing. But it's crazy just to see the stuff that they were able to get away with. And because they were able to get away with it, the outcomes and repercussions that is now still rocking us to this day. Now, what does not work, Adam McKay is a great director, but I'm not necessarily a big fan of his style of filming. He did this in The Big Short, whereas, which The Big Short was about the housing crisis from, what was that, 2008 or 2011? I can't remember for sure. It's like when they start explaining something that's a little too inside baseball, or very, very in-depth housing stuff that the average person wouldn't know, they basically stop the movie and have someone generic that's not a part of the film, like Margot Robbie in this case, explain it to us while she's laying in a bathtub. To kind of explain to us what they're talking about. And it takes you out of the film. And now, while some people like that style because I think it's funny and it's unique to McKay, I was never a big fan of it because I felt like I'm watching this movie, I'm following what's going on, I don't need you to pause the film and then try to teach me what's going on. I'll catch I'll catch up and I'll figure out what's going on. I don't need you to take me out of the film to teach me something and then throw me back in. And Vice, while it doesn't go all the way like that, like it does in Big Short, there are certain moments with the narrator, Jesse Plemons, who's fantastic, by the way. Don't get me wrong, I love Jesse Plemons in this role, but when they break away from the Chaney story to literally have this guy that we don't know who he is until basically the last 15, 20 minutes of the movie, just start talking to us and explaining everything to us, and sometimes going even further to explain certain aspects that they're talking about, it can take you out of the film overall, because I'm in this watching this story about Dick Cheney and how his rise to power and all this stuff, and then you're pausing the movie or the story to let Jesse Plemons talk to you about all this other stuff, and it just, I personally was not a big fan of it. I know a lot of people love that aspect of the film. It just wasn't for me. As much as I love his performance in the film, I'm just not a big fan of McKay's style of doing that in his movies, especially his dramas. He doesn't really do it a whole lot in his comedies, but in his dramas, he does it quite a bit. It's like he feels like the average person who's watching the movie is just not going to be able to understand what he's talking about, so he needs to pause the film and break it down to us or dumb it down for us to understand what's going on. And I'm just not a big fan of that. So that's the real big problem for me when it comes to the movie. That's it. And that's just a small thing. And like I said, a lot of people love it. I just personally don't. Other than that, this movie does a fantastic job from beginning to end, going through the story of Dick Cheney and everyone else. There's some great shout outs to other people. I mean, you also have Tyler Perry. He's John Powell. It's John Powell. I'm sure it is, but for some reason I'm feeling like John's not his first name, and I know it is. Colin Powell. There you go. Yeah, I knew I was right. I knew it wasn't John. Colin Powell. He does a great job of playing Colin Powell in the movie. You got Allison Pill and Lily Rabe. They're playing Cheney's two daughters, Liz and Mary. And like I said, you have Carell as Rumsfeld, who's fantastic. Adams as Lynn, Dick, Christian Bale as Dick. All these people do great jobs, great performances. The story will keep you intrigued all the way till the very end. Like I said, to some people this will be considered a comedy, and to some people this will be considered a scary drama. This movie might anger some people. This movie might lighten the mood up for some people, depending on the actual situations, because they do go over 9/11 and a bunch of other different things. So this movie can be very divisive for a lot of people. Now, depending on who's watching it, it can go one way or the other. So whether or not overall thoughts on can I recommend this movie for you, if you're not a political person and you just want to see these performances, then yeah, I highly recommend this film. If you're a political person and you want to see how things really, kind of happened, or at least are portrayed in this film to have truthfully happened, then yeah, I 100% recommend this film overall. Now, if you're just a person who's just wanting to watch a movie and you see Vice pop up on your thing, this is probably not the film for you. You're probably not going to enjoy it throughout unless you really just want to watch these performances done by these fantastic actors and actresses. So that's kind of the overall thought. I thought it was a very well done film. It deserves all the recognition that it's getting, especially Christian Bale, Amy Adams, and Steve Carell, even though he's not getting any, for their performances in the film. I don't think it's a Best Picture nomination, personally, and I also don't think Adam McKay necessarily deserves a Best Director nomination, but it is a fantastic film overall, and I really enjoyed it for the most part. And so, yeah, like I said, depending on your standing and where you are with politics or wanting just to see really good acted performances, that's where your range is on whether or not you should watch this or want to watch this movie. Like I said, I can't answer that for you. I know, me being a non-political person, I went into watching this because I wanted to see the performances of Bale, Adams, Carell, and Rockwell, and because this is getting a lot of Oscar buzz. And so I went into it because I wanted to see it that way, and I thoroughly enjoyed it for the most part because of that. But like I said, not everyone goes into movies like I do, so depending on your situation, that would be my overall recommendation, is whether or not you would want to see Vice or not. It literally just depends on if you want to see the performances or if you're a political person and you want to see how this land out. If you want neither of those things, it's probably okay that you can probably steer clear of this. You don't really have to watch it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the review overall. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you guys feel like this review is worth sharing, you go ahead and hit that share button as well. And also don't forget to subscribe to the video, or subscribe to the channel, so that way you guys will stay up to date with all the latest reviews that pop up on the channel. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe to all of these social media outlets that you see below. And until next time, until I see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.